everyone, to the Game Ball Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Schuster. Joining me tonight are Jenny Aquino and Mark Myers. Tonight we'll be deciding the most shocking twist in a video game, and we'll be reviewing our Retro Roulette game, Crazy Taxi 2, for the Sega Dreamcast. But before we get to all of that, what have you guys been playing? Jen, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I'll get the usuals out of the way. So I've been playing some Dead by Daylight. Still about one to two times a week. Nothing crazy like I used to. And not too much to report here. We did have some player test build playing over on my stream. If anyone missed that, I tested out the new killer, who is Pinhead from Hellraiser, which is really exciting. He's been on my killer wish list for pretty much as long as I've started thinking about who I'd like to have as killer in the game. I figured he's a pretty unique and classic bad guy, right? To have chasing you around the map trying to murder you. So I am very excited about that. Having him in the game, I'm excited about. However, his play style is not for me. I can say I tested him out. He's not my favorite killer I've ever played as. He's very complicated. He has so many different abilities and so many different ways to make a survivor's life hell. And I made the mistake of not doing my research before I started playing as him for the first time. And you definitely can't just jump right into him. You definitely have to look up, what he's about. So I would say to anyone out there who has not played as him, once he is available to the general population, definitely do your research if you haven't already. Figure out how to play as Pinhead, because he is very difficult. I can say even if I practice as him, he's just not my style. Still fun. It was interesting playing as him and then going up against him. He has his box, so basically it'll be left somewhere in the map. And if a survivor picks it up, you hear his voice saying, "You opened the box and I came," which is great. So
I mean, whatever's your kink, man.
Yeah. Well, you know how they do. So yeah, it was interesting. But other than that, nothing too much on Dead by Daylight. However, I alluded to this, I believe it was our last podcast, that Phasmo was going through some major game changes and it was coming soon. So they dropped those game changes yesterday. Or I guess if you're listening to this on Monday, it was a few days ago. But either way, it's a brand new drop. And I honestly don't know how I feel about it, which makes me really sad.
Trouble in Paradise.
Yeah, Trouble in Paradise. They literally, when they said they were doing massive changes, they weren't joking. They did a massive overhaul on Phasmo. They changed the way everything looks pretty much. Like they changed the way all of the equipment looks. They added a brand new device called the Dot Machine, or it's DOT something. I don't know what it stands for, but it is an actual paranormal investigation device I had never heard about before. But basically, it's like a little device. You put it on the ceiling or the floor or the wall, and you turn it on, and it emits all these like little green dots, like a grid. So if it's the kind of ghost that interacts with this thing, you'll see it appear as like a white mist in the form of a person walking through it, which is really creepy.
It's not creepy at all.
But pretty cool. Yeah, it's a nice little change that they added there. But so many things are different. So all the equipment looks totally different. So I didn't even know, like there's a regular flashlight and there's a strong flashlight. And obviously you want to go with the strong one, except they look different now. So I didn't know which one was which. They have two new ghosts. I think both of them maybe work with the Dot Machine. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I haven't even actually gone up against the new ghosts yet. So I don't know. I know one of them is totally invisible and you can only see it on the camera that you're holding in your hand. So that would be tricky.
Okay.
They're way more aggressive. They're way faster. The sounds that these ghosts make now, like if anyone doesn't know, old school Phasmo, when the ghost was near you or when it was hunting you and it was super close, you could hear it doing like the grudge noise. I don't think you guys need me to do it, but so, that's creepy. It freaked me out the first few times I heard it, but it got old. Now they do, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to try to do an impression of this because it would totally embarrass me. But it's a mixture of groaning, wheezing, and growling. It is so scary sounding. Like they did such a good job with the sound effect. The ghost now, when it starts hunting you, your flashlight used to flicker. Now, if you're not directly near the ghost when it's hunting, your flashlight doesn't do anything. You have no idea it's hunting, which is insane. And if you do figure out that it's hunting, if you're holding anything electronic that's on in your hand, you have to shut it off or the ghost will come right to you and kill you. And still, you can't talk. You can run now, but only for 3 seconds. And after 3 seconds, you're out of breath and then you can barely walk.
It sounds like they changed it to be more like that other game that just came out.
Yes. So I know in the past I've said, first I was a little nervous about Ghost Hunters Corp. I'm like, they kind of copied Phasmo. But then I played it and I'm like, the two are different enough where I feel like they could coexist. But now I feel like Phasmo made these changes and now they're starting to dip into the Ghost Hunters Corp territory where they're starting to be very similar. And I was telling Dan before, Ghost Hunters Corp to me is not really super solo friendly because the second that you start playing, the ghost can kill you. And you walk in the house and the ghost is like, approaches you. You don't have that like courtesy time that Phasmo kind of gives you for things to ramp up, for your sanity to drop, and then for the ghost to start getting aggressive. And that's something I liked about Phasmo because you can play it by yourself as long as you get to know the game and strategy behind that part. But now the ghosts are so much more aggressive and more difficult to figure out, and there's all these other moving parts to it now, all these changes, and I feel like it's going to become less easy for someone to solo it. I was in a game last night for almost 40 minutes with 4 people. 2 of them got killed. And then it was just me and somebody else. And it was like impossible for us to figure out what kind of ghost it was. And I've been playing this game for almost a year. I'm like level 1,000. Like there's no way. I don't struggle with it anymore, really. But the new changes are just so much. I think they didn't even roll out a beta. They just like released it. So I know the game needs to be optimized. I know there's still some bugs, but I feel like I don't hate it. It's just a lot to get used to. And I feel like my like old Phasmo game is gone. So I have to like feel this new one out, but it's still fun. Unfortunately, for Mark, it's still fun. I'm not going to stop playing it or talking about it, but,
it just seems like they, for some reason, made the game harder instead of better. You know what I mean?
Well, for some people, well, actually, most of the people that I've heard give feedback on it are pretty happy with it. Because I know everyone's biggest complaint is that the fear in the game has been lacking for a long time. So like they wanted to do this big overhaul, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I agree with you. I think they made it a little bit too difficult. I don't know. Like I said, I only played, I think, 4 games and it took a really long time to get through those games, but it just seems, so it's still in early access right now. I kind of feel bad for all of our console friends who are planning on getting this game when it releases. It is so much harder now than it was when I started playing. Like, I feel bad for these people. So we'll see.
I don't know. I've seen games do this in the past where, they see everybody being able to play the game, and get through it rather easily. And, maybe they think that that's, taking the fun out of it. So instead of, and maybe it's just my thoughts, you're deeper into it than I am. But instead of adding the stuff that you're telling me they added, instead of making like, I don't know, something different rather than like make the ghost harder to not run away from, is
right.
Maybe make a ghost that like stalks you, to up the fear factor, something like something different. If instead of when they're hunting, like, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's a ghost that's sort of, not to plug our other podcast, but like the what's it called? The poltergeist that I had in our Stranger Daemons campaign where they just get in your head or they whisper something to you.
Right.
That could have upped the fear factor without making the game harder for new players.
Yeah.
You know.
I totally agree with you. I think the learning curve on this game went up real high when they released these new changes. And I do know that they've been working to make the game more difficult because there's so many people who not brag because that has a negative connotation, but so many people were able to fly through the game, like, speed run it practically, because they got so used to things being kind of safe, where in the past you could go into a locker in a closet, and as long as you were holding the door closed, you could yell at the ghost all you wanted, and this stupid ghost is standing outside like, I want to just kill him, but I can't get in.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make sense because ghosts can walk through walls. So why was that a thing? So then they took that and then they just like blew it up immensely with the difficulty, where, like I said, now if you're not next to the ghost and it's hunting, you don't even know it's hunting. Like, it's really, really difficult. And they also have a speed boost now, the ghosts. I don't know if I mentioned this already, where if they see you, they're so much faster than they were initially, even when they first gave them a speed boost.
Yeah.
So it's almost impossible. If you're not able to like turn a corner really fast to break line of sight, you're not going to survive. And the people that I played with yesterday died so quickly. Like, we were on voice chat, and as soon as I heard them say like, oh my God, I'm going to die, they just died. Like, they didn't even have a chance.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing what people think. And I'm looking forward to playing it more too, obviously, and feeling it out, and I'll let everybody know. But if anyone listening has any opinions on it, please share. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. But yeah, other than that, in our Retro Roulette game, we've been doing It Takes Two, which has been a lot of fun. Trying to think. I don't think I've really played. Oh, I'm still playing Pokemon Unite
nice.
too. That's my other game that I've been pouring a lot of
I
time
downloaded
into.
it, but I haven't started it yet.
Okie doke. Well, it's a lot of fun. And I'm still, if anyone cares, I'm maining Charizard, because how can I not?
man.
First
Of
of all,
course. I mean,
yeah.
that's what you do.
Yes, he's good. So you have Pokemon that are you have your support Pokemon, then you have your super offensive ones, and then you have like I think they call them all rounders or something like that. So that's what he is. He's like a decent amount of speed, he's a decent amount of defense, and he's a decent amount of offense. So I kind of like that. I've never really been one to like go to either side, I feel like, in general. Maybe more support than anything else, but I do like having the offense angle on him as well. So I'm playing as him, and then Ninetales is pretty fun too. But yeah, I definitely recommend anyone listening, if you like Pokemon and you like those MOBA games, recommend giving. I don't know if it's going to be a permanent thing, so if you're thinking about it and you haven't done it yet, I would download it just to make sure that it's something you can get for free. And I think they're adding Pokemon. I don't know if it's September 1st or sometime in early September. They're adding some new ones. So if anyone cares about that, you got to catch them all, right? So
Yes. So Jen, how many tails does that one guy have?
Oh, I don't know, like 8 or something.
Okay, so make sure. Just
Yeah.
gaming convention.
Yeah.
If he has 8 tails, but they call him 9 tails.
Yeah.
It's an inside joke that none of us get.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I'll go next, because I think Mark has an extensive thing he wants to get to. So I'm back on my bullshit, and I'm playing Chain of Memories again, which it's just devolving at this point. I finally had to like look up strat, because I was just not. I got stuck on another boss, and I was like, this should not be this difficult. It's all because you have to use combos for your cards. And if no one knows what I'm talking about, I'm playing Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, where it's a mixture of an action adventure game and a card game. So you have cards that equal your attack points, and if you don't, like, if you go to attack and they have a higher attack card, they can knock your card out, other stuff. So you can also create combos with your attacks, and it does special attacks. And I have found the cheese attack, which I have been using pretty much nonstop at this point. It's the only thing I can use to kill bosses. Like, it's unbelievable how broken it is. Because if you go up against a boss that's got like 3 health bars, it'll knock out 3/4 of a health bar. So it's definitely a cheese attack, and I have no problem using it in a game that's way too difficult for no reason. Other than that, I've been playing WWE 2K16. If you haven't tuned into our Twitch, we just did a fun little thing where we did a Royal Rumble to determine our fantasy football draft order. It's something fun that we started last year, and I think it's going to be a staple moving forward. But as we were getting ready for it, I decided I was going to play a little bit of it, and there's a reason I don't play it. It's probably the worst WWE game I've played. It's not good. It's not good at all. Other than the like storyline stuff, like the Stone Cold stuff that you do, like the actual like build a character and like Road to WrestleMania stuff is not fun. They added too many stupid mini games inside of the wrestling match, and it makes it not fun. I don't think I've ever kicked out of a pin because I can't figure out the mini game to do when you're being pinned. So I don't know if you have any opinions on this one, Mark. I know I'm not a huge fan of this one. My favorite is WWE 13 before they went to 2K. 13 is my favorite by far.
Yeah. 13 is easily the best. Because I still have that for the PS3 with all my creative guys on it.
Yeah, I still have it for the 360. It's like one of the last WWE games I purchased that I purchased on disc.
Yeah.
So I had it forever.
Yeah. And it was one of those
exactly what I did.
Yeah.
All right, so that does it for me, Mark. Let us know what you've been playing, and then we'll get your.
I will end it with a special 5-minute rant, and exactly 5 minutes because you'll it'll be spoiler. It'll
be spoiler full. So Mark will time it so we can put the in description.
Yeah. I'll start with I don't know if I mentioned this in the last podcast or on a stream, but I finally survived a game of They Are Billions, the strategy zombie game. It's only taken me about 1.5 years. And I had it on the easiest settings you could possibly put it on and just barely survived. So I don't know if I'll continue playing that game, but that is like the thing when I finish the road in Death Stranding. I'm just like, done. I have downloaded Madden 22 because I do the EA monthly thing on PC. So I got it a few days early, so I've been playing that since before it came out. It's Madden. I haven't got any of the goofy bugs, but I did get one where it just wouldn't, like, it took a while to snap the ball. Like, they wouldn't set the ball down. But that's happened in every Madden. It's fine. The animations are good. Everything else around it really isn't too much improved. The only thing I really like is the way they've streamlined upgrading your players. Because Madden's basically an RPG now, and
everything.
Last time they made you like play through the practice stuff to be able to upgrade your players, and now they just automate it. And they even have like each of the coaches has a tech tree now and stuff. It's going way RP. So since they're taking that from FIFA, that can help you upgrade stuff and things like that. So it's fine. You like Madden, you'll get it. You'll like it. I'd wait a few weeks. I'd wait till like mid-September, till they get all the major kinks worked out. I saw one that was on Twitter where the center never snapped the football, according to the game, but the football was just floating in midair. And then all the defensive players were trying to tackle the center who was still in the snap position.
So Madden is being made by Bethesda now? Is that what I'm getting?
Well, Madden's been being made by Bethesda for a while. The best was last year when the ball basically ricocheted off like the entire team that was on the field and then got caught for an interception. But yeah, so that was one of the funnier ones. I haven't caught any of that. So Madden's Madden, if you like it. Ultimate Team still seems fine. I don't ever play it, but doesn't seem like they did anything crazy with that. Also, I picked up. I'm going through Death's Door. I finished the second, boss there. Still definitely going to be in my top 5 games of the year. So it's really, really good. I've also started playing Humankind, which is sort of like a Civ type 4X game, where it's a little more strategy when you're fighting rather than dice rolls. So my computer did this weird crash, which I'll have to talk to you about, Tom. It's been doing it a little bit lately, but like soft crashing. So I haven't gone back since that happened. But so far it looks it got me to play Civ 6 again. I'm doing a marathon game, which is 1,500 turns, so I've not completed that yet. But it kind of lit my fire to go back to that game. So I'm looking to get through a game and see if I actually like it. Um, and then right before I played at this podcast, I played through a little bit of Wildermyth, which is the like Dungeons and Dragon type campaign game where you like make choices to change the story, and it gives you like 3 choices, and it's sort of like a mixture of Telltale and actual D&D stuff. And it's all based like a storybook, so the people look like little pop-up paper people walking around. Really good aesthetic. I love it so far. I'm only through the first mission of the game, and you start with canon stories for it. So I already have my first squad starts off with 3 women. I put it that they were, in my head, they're all friends. 2 of them may have feelings for each other, and the other one is just a friend. So because they give you a romance choice at one point. So I was like, yeah, sure, why not? We'll have these 2, have their will they, won't they throughout this campaign thing. So it gives you choices like that, and then you can decide what equipment to give what, and that can upgrade. If a certain person finds it and they give it to another person, it might up their like trust or friendship meter, things like that. Seems good so far. I'll check back in next podcast when I've gone through a campaign to let you know. And then the game I was literally playing like minutes before we started that WWE stream, I finally played through a good like hour or so of Boyfriend Dungeon. And that game is exactly what Jonathan described it as to me. It is a little mix of Hades, a little mix of Persona, and it is definitely entirely my shit. So far I've met 3 swords. One is a fencing sword, who looks like Idris Elba.
Of course.
The other one is a regular like scimitar, and he seems like an asshole. His name is Sunder, so I've been knocking off his advances because his really hot friend that owns the bar, she told me that he is bad news. So I was like, I'm going to listen to you. You're cool as shit. Unfortunately, she's not a sword, so I can't date her. And then I just met a dagger named Valencia, I believe. I just went through like 5 levels of the dungeon with her. Basically got to a point where I met a boss, and I was not leveled up enough because it was like my 3rd run through the dungeon, which they call Dunge. Like it's like shorthand DUNJ. It's like set in a mall, and you're fighting your insecurities throughout it. So it's kind of cool, the concept, and you're talking through text messaging. And you get you craft gifts for the people, kind of like Stardew Valley, and relationship simulator type stuff there. So thumbs up. I'm probably going to finish through that. It seems like a couple of games I'm playing right now will all be probably securely, definitely in my top 10, most likely in my top 5. But one game that I thought was going to be in my top 5, which is very much not going to be in my top 5, it's a little game called 12 Minutes. So we'll do the warning now. I am going to set a timer on my phone, and I am going to rant spoiler heavy about this game for exactly 5 minutes. So I'm going to count down, and if you want to tune out, Tom will also put a timestamp if you want to follow that to make it easier on yourself. But I need to just vent about this game because the opinions I've heard about it, range. Jeff Gerstmann said it best on the Bombcast. Just then I could come up with. He says he's heard opinions from people that have played 12 minutes and people that have finished 12 minutes.
Apparently, there's a very big difference,
and they seem to be 2 different people. So anyway, going to start the timer in 3, 2, 1. What the fuck is this game? So to start off,
Quickly,
it
Mark.
seems like Daisy Ridley really doesn't know an American accent, because it really doesn't sound like anything. It's just her talking without her British accent.
Okay.
Like there's no attempt at dialect or anything, so that threw me off for most of the game. And apparently, James McAvoy only knows how to speak Philadelphian because he said water.
Water?
In it,
Wow.
water. So the whole voice acting, and also what's his name? William Dafoe is in it, and he prank call before. When he says it, honey, I think you've been prank called. Is how he says it. So anyway, so you go through real fast in the first minute or so here. For those of you that are listening that played it, the mechanics are kind of wonky. I do enjoy the point-and-click adventure of trying to figure out a puzzle and doing certain things. I got 3/4 of the way through the game and finally just looked it up because I wanted to finish it. Once I figured out the twist, which I'll get to in a second, I was like, fuck this, I just want to finish it. And there's also another twist that I have to read up on. There's a really good Polygon story on that I didn't get a chance to read. That's a little deeper than what I know. But even the surface layer twist that happens in this game is like, fuck off. So essentially, you have a cop, knocks on the door, accuses your wife of murdering her father, and wants a watch that she has in the apartment. You go through this whole thing trying to figure out if she really killed her father. Then you find out she may have. And then through a series of events, which include drugging your wife so she passes out on the bed, and then shocking a cop so he passes out, you figure out that she didn't kill him. He survived the shooting when she shot him, and he was killed on New Year's Eve, and she was hundreds of miles away on New Year's Eve. So you figure, through another circumstance, you figure out that she had a half-brother through her father's affair with a nanny. So you figure, hey, it must have been the brother because the father said monster, and that was what your mother used to call the bastard offspring, or whatever terminology you want. This was a moment when I said, before they revealed it, like 10 minutes before they revealed it, they said something like, oh, it must have been the brother. His mother had a flower name, and I went, oh, fuck. Because in the first scene of the game, when you just go through the regular 12 minutes, your wife is pregnant and she shows you baby clothes, and the baby clothes says the name Dahlia on it, with a flower on there. So this is when you find out that you're your wife's half brother, who you've also impregnated, by the way. So there's incest and incest pregnancy in this game, and you also killed your father. And this is supposed to be, oh shit, man, this is crazy. To which I a wanking motion to it. It was the simplest twist to a story you could do in this. Like, what's a shock twist we can do? And it was the simplest one to have them be related. Nothing deeper than that. They throw a dumb thing in there about the cop's daughter having cancer, and that doesn't really pay off outside of you convince this very sweet young teenager to tell her father not to murder two people, because the one person is not a murderer. And then the very, very end of the game, you do some Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind shit, where you make yourself forget everything, and I guess that's how you start dating your sister wife at this point. There's something deeper to that story that I didn't catch that apparently is in this Polygon story that I want to read. Yeah, I got about 30 seconds. So the one cool part about this game is that once you finish the second ending, because yes, there are two endings. There's three endings technically, but you only get to see two through one playthrough. It basically erases your save and you start from the beginning again.
That's a mess.
Yeah, so to get the third ending, you have to play through the whole game, get the first ending again, and then get the third ending. So yeah, so that's it. Rant over.
Wow.
Do not hate. Thank you. That is my thesis.
Or if you do, don't finish it.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not good. I apologize, Kurt, if you haven't finished it yet, because I know you're playing through it currently. If you have finished it,
I'm hoping he finishes it before Monday.
Yeah. So that was my rant on 12 minutes. I beat it in one sitting in 4.5 hours. So yeah, thank you, Game
Woo,
Pass.
woo.
Yeah, that's a game that I'm glad I would not have spent money on.
I was so excited about this game, by the way.
I
The
know
concept.
we were when we saw it announced, we thought it was a really cool idea, and then they went and did that.
Yeah. So
Yep.
so just in a feedback to an old thing we used to do on the Tic Tam podcast. The director of this game can go fuck himself. Thank you. Moving on to the news, Jen.
Anyway, yes, Jen, let's get to the news. A lot of stuff has happened over the past couple weeks.
So my first story, 12 Minutes, has been announced to be the best video game of the year so far. Just kidding.
It's going to win multiple BAFTAs. I swear to God, it's going to win so many BAFTAs.
We'll have to find out, won't we?
Yeah.
So my real story. There's apparently a reason for this surge in retro gaming prices we've been seeing, allegedly.
Yeah, very allegedly.
So yes, very allegedly. So this is a hot take. So a new report has surfaced within the last few days. May explain the recent uptick in these crazy video game auction prices we've been seeing. So just to do a little bit of a refresher before we dive into the conspiracy theory, the record price went from Super Mario Brothers 3 selling for $156K in November of 2020. Then Legends of Zelda sold for $870K this year. 2 days after that, we had Super Mario 64 sell for $1.56 million. And then 2 weeks after that, Super Mario Brothers sold for $2 million, which is now the record for the most expensive retro video game to have been sold at auction, which is really crazy if you just look at those jumps that has been made over the last not even full year, right?
It's been less than 6 months.
It's crazy. And we kind of touched on this slightly. I think it was our last podcast or the one before, where we were saying like these people realize this can't keep going, that their games are worth $1 bazillion and this is just going to get to be insane. So a journalist named Carl Jobst probably, thought about this too. And he has alleged through a video that's just under an hour long, that the grading company Weta Games or Weta Games, not sure how they pronounce it, and collectible auction company Heritage Auctions have been working together, allegedly, to inflate the value of the retro gaming market, and in return have been making a ton of money from it. So Weta Games came about in 2018, and even though there were other grading companies out there, they quickly became recognized as like the top grading. And then Heritage Auctions started listing their games for sale a year after Weta was created. They only sell games that Weta grades. So basically, Jobs believes that Weta has been grading games and artificially raising their value. And then there are these press conferences or interviews being held to spread this false awareness that the value of retro games are going to continue to rise. Game collectors or investors with a ton of money purchase these games from Heritage Auction. They're sold at these exorbitant prices. And then once a record sale hits, the video game values continue going up from here. So, it's a very long video, obviously, and I'm not going to get into everything that he talked about. But basically, one of his biggest points that he's trying to make with this allegation is that the amount of money that's being made off of these video game sales is kind of crazy. So he's saying Weta charges, basically, if your game is valued at $10,000 or above, they'll charge you up to $400 for their rating. Charge as much as $12 to grade your game. And that depends, that depends on its initial value. So that's already $20K max, we'll say, going to Weta. Then Heritage Auctions will charge a buyer 20% of the sale, right? So if it's a $1 million sale, they're getting $200K in their pocket. And then they take an additional 5% from the seller. So again, say they made $1 million sale, they're getting an additional $5,000. So he's claiming that he believes this all started with a copy of Super Mario Brothers that was graded by Weta and sold for triple the highest price ever paid for games. So at this point, it was just over $100,000. One of the people that purchased it was a group of 3. One of them was Heritage Auctions co-founder Jim Halpern. they established this record that was set, announcing that retro gaming prices are going up. This is going to be the next big thing, blah, blah, blah. And then it's advised that his own game is now going up for sale through heritage auctions. So once they inflate, the pricing now I'm going to put my game up for sale. So yeah.
Sounds
so
like
again,
NFTs.
yes, these are all allegations. Nothing has been proven. It's very interesting. If you have not watched the video and you're interested in this stuff, I would definitely recommend checking it out. As far as I was able to find, Heritage Auctions has come forward. They've denied all the allegations.
Of course they have.
And they said that they wish they were given an opportunity to answer any questions that Jobst had before he made the video, because they're saying it's just riddled with inaccuracies and he's just assuming things and he doesn't, have his facts straight. And Weta, as far as I'm aware, has not responded at all yet.
They
so
won't.
I'm not sure.
They won't.
Yeah, I don't think they will. But this whole thing was very interesting. Very interesting to research for today's news section. I know you guys probably have some thoughts if you want to add on to anything.
From what I've watched, because I didn't watch the full hour video, because I actually watched some of it. The one thing that kind of turned me off on it, and maybe it's my, not to bring this up every so often, but my journalistic background, is one of his sources for part of this, the allegations, is a conversation from a son to a father, and not really any evidence. And that could just be somebody coming to him to, hurt someone else. Like, it's not like I need for that. I forget what the exact claim was, but it's just I just want a little more evidence from his side of like that one thing, and it seems to hinge a little bit on most of the stuff coming from this. But this is as our friend Ant would say, this is capitalism, baby. The market manipulation stuff is really hard to prove that they're doing it because you need to show that there was some kind of communication to this. You can put anything up for bid for any amount of money, Anybody can buy it. They're just dumb to buy it. The part that is a little rough, that just, reported to the FTC, that's why they're there, is the whole percentage thing. That's the thing they could get nailed on out of anything I've heard in this story and seen in the video, is that this sort of Heritage only does WATA games and WATA gets a percentage and Heritage gets a percentage. Like that could be seen as like
insider
trading sort of exact
right.
But that's where that's where the trouble could come in. Not any of this where they're inflating the game prices to make money. Because of course that part of it, if someone wants to put a bid up for $2 million, that's fine. Anybody can do that. That's just, like I said, that's just how capitalism works with auctions and stuff. But, it's the part where they get so much of a percentage if it is that high number that can be looked into. Like, if it was a thing where there were no percentages and people were buying games for $2 million, there would be no issue with it. Could they be...
It all has to do
like,
with the cuts, for sure.
Yeah, it's essentially, they should definitely be reported to the, the Federal Trade Commission, for this stuff and take it from there, like a YouTube video, because it's so hard for journalists nowadays. Having just that one part of the story be hinged on such a circumstantial hearsay thing is what bothers me, because it makes you question the rest of the stuff that he says. So he could be completely right. The whole thing could be 100% true. But it's going to be hard until hard evidence comes out for, people on the internet that already want to scream and holler at these people are going to believe anything negative that's said about them. But, I just wish he didn't have that in the video because it would be a much bigger story if he did. But, yeah, hopefully they get caught on something because mostly rich people doing this kind of manipulation stuff when it comes to, auctions and stocks and stuff like that. If they do it in a very dumb way, which just sounds like they may have been doing it in a very dumb way, they get caught pretty easily. If this was being done correctly and by people that know what they were doing in terms of cheating them, we wouldn't hear a word of this. So that's basically my stance on it. I don't know where Tom stands, but
yeah, I mean,
I want a second person to report on a lot of the stuff this guy did, independently, instead of just quoting his video.
Right. The problem is there needs to be more than, like you said, there needs to be more than one person corroborating this. So you can only take it so far with so little evidence. But it's not unbelievable.
Yeah.
The fact that somebody would do this. And we've seen it with everything. Like I want to say they're doing it with baseball cards now too. It's the same thing. It's the same
cards,
baseball cards, Pokemon cards, whatever you can get graded, which is what I think is the dumbest thing ever. If you can get it graded and it gets a certain grade, all of a sudden it's worth 20 times more than it was before you got it graded, which makes no sense to me.
Exactly.
And it's just this company making up values and people paying it because they think, oh, it'll continue to be valuable even if I, down the road because it's graded. And I hate all of that stuff.
Yep.
Because it just inflates prices for no reason, and people who want the stuff, like because they had it as a kid, can't get it because rich people are grabbing everything they can, hoping that it'll be their next big investment. And it just doesn't belong in retro gaming, and it's killing. I think it's killing the retro gaming scene a little bit because people can't buy games anymore. And I feel like when that happens, people go and see their Uncle Vim,
Yeah.
I just feel like that's what happens when stuff like this starts to happen and no one can afford a game anymore. It's just getting a little crazy.
Yeah.
And me being a retro gamer, it sucks even more because I don't buy games anymore. I haven't bought a retro game that wasn't a disc in, I don't know, I couldn't tell you how long. Like I won't purchase cartridges anymore because I have flashcards for everything because of stuff like that. And it's killing a cool hobby, just like, everything else. I feel like this happens with all hobbies. Somebody comes in and tries to make it a money thing, and then it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
That's my rant on it.
Yeah. I have to agree with what Mark said. I would really be interested in someone else step in and do their own research and come in from, a fresh angle on it and see what this person is able to uncover. And I do hope that they are, investigated by the FTC and we get more information on this. I think it could prove to be very interesting to see what's found. But yeah, I also agree with Tom. I think this is putting a huge strain on the retro gaming, like real retro gaming collectors that are not millionaires, that are looking for their next big investment, as he said.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It sucks. It really sucks. So, yeah, figuring we should probably move on to something a little bit lighter after that. Yes. So, yes.
Let's not go there.
I know I'm going to say this game wrong. I know Jonathan has corrected me in the past, but I don't remember if it's correct. So I'm just going to go for it. Genshin Impact?
Genshin.
Okay. Genshin Impact is welcoming Aloy into their game. I don't know if you guys saw this. She is no stranger to guest appearances. She's shown up in Fortnite and Monster Hunter World so far. So now she's going to be in Genshin Impact. There is a trailer available currently. It's pretty much a teaser trailer. It's not really showing her off completely, but she looks super cute. Her main weapon in the game is going to be her bow, and she does appear to have other abilities. They do show her wielding some kind of device that she, helps her freeze her enemies in place momentarily, so she gets an advantage during battle. But from what I saw, it looks pretty cool. I haven't played the game. I've actually considered playing it before I started playing Monster Hunter World. I actually was going to start playing Genshin Impact, but I went with Monster Hunter because I was looking forward to Rise, so I wanted to get started on that. But I would definitely recommend, if anyone is a fan of Horizon Zero Dawn and Genshin Impact, obviously, definitely look out for that. But even if you've maybe been considering playing in like Horizon, I feel like this is a good time to give it a shot. She is going to be available for free starting September 1st for anyone on PS4 or PS5. And then with the following update after that, she'll be available for all other consoles. So if you're PC, you have to wait a little bit longer, but that's okay. yeah, I wanted to throw that in there. And then speaking of Horizon, we have unfortunately some bad news regarding our red-haired bombshell. Horizon Forbidden West officially has been delayed until February 18th of 2022. Yeah. We were expecting to see this game released at the end of this year, but also I think we all knew that was really not going to happen. Initially, it was believed to be on track for the holidays for this year, but they had a lot of issues with motion capture tech and actors' availabilities with the pandemic, and it just kept kind of delaying. So I believe they're taking, their time with this. And if there's one thing we've learned from good old Cyberpunk, it's that games sometimes need to be delayed long enough to ensure that they actually work correctly.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So pre-orders, I believe, are starting on September 2nd, and they are announcing more information at that time as well. So hopefully we'll continue to, get updates, and hopefully we don't have to wait too long. But I absolutely would rather have this game be delayed until it's perfect and it's ready to be played. I don't want to get some, buggy hast, terrible game and be let down.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we don't need that.
No.
Yeah. I kind of saw this one coming just from the people I've been listening to, especially Jeff Grubb over at GamesBeat, saying that this has been in the works for a while. They were just waiting for a time to announce it. And like I think I'd said to you in the past, with a lot of this stuff, we would hear some things about fall games being delayed or new games coming out in the fall. Once we got the Tokyo Game Show, Gamescom was Tuesday, Tom?
Yeah, it was this past
days ago.
Yeah. So no surprise that this came at this point. I'd rather have it. I think it feels more like a Q1 game than a Q4 game. To me, it does. It feels like it's one of those games that you can put out a DLC later in the year to get everybody revved up for Game of the Year if you're worried about that. I don't think it, as much as I love the first game, and just like The Last of Us, as much as I like Last of Us 2, I felt it should have ended with the first game, story-wise. So I'm interested to see if they prove me wrong with this one. But for me, it just doesn't seem like this game has the impact to be in a November, December timeframe with your Call of Duties and things of that nature. And at least not yet. It's not, that time of year is mostly meant for, those games tend to dominate the market. So get it out of there, get it in Q1, have it sit on its own so it can sell millions and millions of copies.
Yeah, hopefully it's an amazing game. I agree. I think Mark and I know nobody probably knows this. We had done, what was it, almost like a 2-hour, very in-depth cast a long ago about Horizon Zero Dawn. And I think we both agreed that the way it ended, and at that time, obviously, we didn't know that there was going to be a second one. I think we both agreed the way it ended was like a perfect, everything tied up really nicely. And they left you a little hint where, I guess they could do a second one if they wanted to, but they don't have to. So hopefully this second game doesn't kind of leave a bad taste in everyone's mouth about the series. They will be series. I don't think it will, but I'm looking forward to it. I hope that it surprises us and it's like,
it feels, someone said, that game made a whole lot of money. We need a sequel. It kind of has the video game feeling of, and maybe there's a better example of this, but it's the one I always go to. It has a very video game-esque feel of like Rambo, where First Blood is really good, and the book itself is a really good, solid ending, which makes sense with the movie, and the movie, or it makes sense with the story, and then the movie's ending's a little different because they wanted to open up the possibility of eventually maybe continuing with this character, because it's the 80s, and a lot of movies were character driven, right? So that's what I feel like with this is Aloy became real popular, went on all those games, you ended the game real well, and so you had to make a second one. I don't believe, in another sense, I don't believe the Last of Us people when they say, "Oh, we were planning for a second one the whole time." I don't believe that was the case. With that, I think they saw the popularity, and then Neil Druckmann went, "Oh, well, I have ideas floating around, but I even think, and you might not be of this opinion, Jen, but yeah, final word about Horizon. I don't even think the Frozen Wild should have been released. I don't think that was needed for it, but video game company has to go make money, so that's why that released. But it's sometimes a purist in me that when you tell a good story, just constantly going back to the well will only ruin it, unless if you come up with something fresh. And hopefully, whatever this thing they're coming up with isn't just some kind of other thing that's also corruption.
Right.
Which would be a big letdown.
It kind of seems like it's looking like that, honestly.
Yeah,
I know. I agree with you.
Better.
I hope it's something totally fresh, like you said. For me, Frozen Wilds was my way of coping with the fact that Horizon ended. But I don't think it was necessarily necessary either. Yeah. But like you said, they obviously wanted to make more money, and they knew how much people love the first game, so they're like, yeah, they're gonna buy the Frozen Wild, obviously. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what this game shapes up to be, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more as it gets closer and we get more updates and stuff. So speaking of games we love, specifically, Tom, let's talk about Destiny 2, shall we? So Bungie has revealed their next major expansion for Destiny 2. It's going to be called The Witch Queen. It is going to allow players to go through a continuation of the sci-fi series and eventually face off against Savathun, who is the Witch Queen. So she's apparently been teased in Destiny 2 for 7 years, which, first of all, I can't believe it's been 7 years. But anyway,
Destiny 2 has been around for 7 years.
That's crazy because I remember Destiny 1 coming out. So I'm
like Destiny 1, I could see being around for 7 years, but Destiny 2, that's a little mind blowing to me.
Destiny 1 was on the 360, by the way, just to age that more.
It was on the Xbox One also.
Yeah, it was on, because we got it for PS4. But yeah, so this has apparently been teased for 7 years. She has been behind several major events and I don't know this personally, I don't know if Tom, if you've heard of this, but the corruption of the Dreaming City, that storyline. Yep. So this will be the first players will have against her directly after all of this lore has been teased. We will also get a new location, which is Savathun's throne world. Sounds really cool. A new campaign, weapons, armor, and a new raid. And then they're also adding a new weapon called the Glaive, which is a melee weapon. They're going to be able to be used as ranged or close-up combat weapons. And then we will also now have the ability to customize weapons with specific abilities, mods, and stats. So they're putting a lot more personalization options into weapon customization.
I just hope they don't make. So the one gripe I had when they started doing that was they made shaders, and I hated that. So I hope they just throw that out and go back to the way it used to be.
So here's the timeline we're looking at. So September 10th is going to start us off. It's going to be the Season of the Lost. I think they said it's campaign 15 or 17, something like that. Or season, I should say, excuse me. So Season of the Lost is going to set the stage for the Witch Queen. And then we have Bungie's 30th anniversary. So they're doing some free events. It's going to be called Dares of Eternity. They're also doing a purchasable pack of cosmetics. There's going to be a new exotic weapon. And they're also bringing back the infamous Loot Cave dungeon and rocket launcher. Yes. So that's, if you're an OG Destiny player, you'll know what those things are.
They're bringing back the Galahorn.
Oh gosh, it's gonna be. I'm kind of looking forward to that. I kind of want to dabble in that a little bit again for old time's sake.
We got it.
Yeah,
so we can play it.
Yeah, and then yes,
cool.
And then following that, we'll have the Witch Queen season coming out February of 2022, and then they actually also announced beyond the Witch Queen, they're looking at the next major expansion called Lightfall, and then the final shape, which will be their dramatic conclusion to all of this that's been going on over the last 10 years, which is wild. Yeah, so they have a roadmap for us, or for Tom mainly. So,
hit me.
Hit him with it. That's kind of exciting.
Something interesting I saw from this Bungie stream was that now enemies can use the light, which has been your main weapon. Is being able to use the light against the darkness. And somehow We don't know yet. These enemies are now able to use the light, so they have powers like you do. Like they have ability to do just crazy.
Is Destiny just Kingdom Hearts?
No, it's not. No, Kingdom Hearts is way more convoluted.
Okay.
It's not nearly as convoluted. Granted, there's a lot of lore, but the lore makes sense. It's not like Kingdom Hearts where they just decided they were going to make all this lore and none of it connects to each other and none of it makes any sense.
I meant more of the light and the darkness thing.
Oh, not really that either, because the light is what keeps the Guardians alive. If they didn't have the light, they would die, which is spoiler warning for anybody who hasn't played Destiny 2. It's the reason Cade 6 dies is because his what the hell are those things called?
He lost his smile.
No, his little companion gets destroyed.
Yeah, his ghost.
His ghost gets destroyed. Yeah. Yes, your ghost is correct. His ghost gets destroyed, which is the thing that can bring him back to life. So, and without the ghost and the light, he can no longer live. So that's if he dies, rather. So, and that's what happened. That's the main point of the whole beginning of Destiny 2 is that you've lost the light and you got to get it back. So it's interesting that the opposition
that's
weapon.
kind of cool. Well, to wrap up the news, I figured this would be a good time to talk about some other new things that came out that were announced at Gamescom that are coming to Game Pass. So we talked about this briefly off stream. Forza Horizon 5. We got a look at new gameplay and some cover cars that's coming out November 9th. So I'm looking forward to that game. It looks really good. I know we were talking about this. I know Tom obviously
totally co-op
Yeah.
it because that's the beauty of that game is you can co-op
Yep.
Forza.
That's awesome. My favorite announcement, Back for Blood, will be coming out day one for PC players on Game Pass. So that's awesome.
We'll be playing that too.
Yes. Then we are getting Age of Empires 4 on the PC, Into the Pit for PC and console. Did you want to say something about Age of Empires? I know you like that game.
Yeah, I was just saying, yep, I'm looking to see if it'll actually be a game that's good since they haven't put one out since 2.
Yeah. We had Into the Pit for PC and console, Crusaders Kings 3 for PC and console, Psychonauts 2 for both, The Gunk for both.
Ooh,
and
the
then
Gunk.
What?
The Gunk.
The Gunk.
Such a good name.
It sounds great. And then they also announced 10 humble indie games, which will be available on day one as well. And then they also announced a few updates and DLC that we're getting. So I know Microsoft Flight Sim is getting major updates, which I know there's a cult following behind that game. So I'm sure that's exciting for those players.
I'm excited air racing.
There's air racing.
Sweet.
That's cool.
Yeah. Like it's if you've ever watched it on television, it doesn't do it justice. If you see air racing in person, it's like the craziest thing you've ever watching dudes fly super fast through pylons without hitting them.
Very scary. I don't know if I'd be able to handle watching that live.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. We have State of K2 coming, Borderlands 3 themed Making Mayhem update in Sea of Thieves, and Wasteland 3's Cult of the Holy Detonation. So those are some, I guess, bullet points from Gamescom. I don't know if I missed anything that you guys wanted to mention as well that you found exciting.
You covered pretty much everything I'm looking forward to.
I mean,
Mark.
I'm interested in the see if the Call of Duty multiplayer is good because, you know, the Modern Warfare 1 is starting to get to the point where cheaters are all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as fun anymore.
So many cheaters. I heard about that.
Yeah, so but it's World War II guns and anyway. But Laura Bailey's in the campaign, so yay, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah, there's a Durgan game that I saw on the opening night live, Jen, if you want to try and figure that out.
It looks like
I could have wrote it down.
It looks like Panzer Dragoon.
Yeah. There's a Durgan game.
Spiritual sequel.
And I am definitely checking out Dopev or Dopev. That Tom, I don't know if you saw that really cute game that was insane.
Is that like the Pokemon MMO
sort of thing? Yeah. That was at the end of opening night live.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like I was like, what is this game? But yeah, that's the only other games outside of that. that I'm looking forward to. Yeah, it was just Gamescom was fine. I want to say one thing before we move on, and I think you guys may share the same opinion. I have a feeling that if the ESA doesn't get its shit together, I think Jeff Keighley's basically going to have E3 in June. His thing is going to be E3 from here on out.
Yeah,
because
he's pretty much taken over everything at this point anyway. He's the only person that people trust at this point.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and the shows are fine. I mean, he's as neutral as he can be. I mean, he is basically Kojima's best friend, so you take some of that stuff with a grain of salt.
But stand for Kojima, but other than that, he's fine.
But he also there was one game. Oh, when he was talking about Jet, and he basically made that political comment where it was like Jet is about a game where resources are being drained away and the climate is getting bad. He's like, oop, a little too close to home. Which, goddamn Jeff. But yeah. So I think if the ESA doesn't get its shit together and the companies, because from what I've heard of how his thing works, is they pay a certain amount of money to be on his show, and it comes back great, to get a spot in either the Game Awards or these things he does. Because you can have every system on one show. Like, it's not segregated, and they can have their own things if they want to have their own special things at other times of the year. But I think he's going to be taking, it's going to be Jeff Keighley stuff, because he's, system down pat for everything and getting sponsorships and all. So, and I'm kind of glad, because it seems like a good show. It's not as boring as some of the, hour and a half, 2 hour, brand only press conferences can get. Just because he's an entertaining host. But yeah, that's why I liked about Opening Night Live. And just to let you know, if the update for Death Stranding, because they're adding like story stuff and like a racing circuit to the game.
In the GTA.
Basically making it GTA. If it's a free upgrade on PS5, I will check it out. But if I have to pay anything, even if it's like $10, like FF, like a remake or something else was that I had to pay $10 for, I'm not going to do it. But that was the only other game that I would even have, that's coming out this year that I'm looking forward to. But I recommend anybody out there, if they just want to go find that Opening Night Live press conference, does a really good job to get you hyped for a whole bunch of games and showing things that you probably didn't even know about or think about, or seeing in a larger, more like gameplay of something. It's probably one of the best shows for that type of stuff that I've seen since the that really wholesome cast or whatever that was around E3, where it was like every game was like, as I went through. So that's on that.
All right. Does that do it for the news, Jen?
That wraps up our news for this podcast.
Okay. Well, then it's time to get to our main topic, which is after the whole debacle with 12 minutes, Jen got to thinking and thought, well, what's the actual most shocking twist in a video game? And we decided we're going to decide on this podcast what is the most shocking twist in a video game. We've compiled a list. Each of us has 3 entries, and we're going to have them battle to the death. So, Jen, since this was your topic, why don't you go first?
Okay. I'm torn on which one I should open with, but I guess
go least obvious to most obvious.
Least obvious to
most obvious to least obvious.
Okay. So I'll start with the most obvious one, and this could be that one of you are also picked, but maybe not, because when I was telling it to Dan, he was like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that. So whatever. I think that the Samus's reveal in Metroid was, when I'm thinking of shocking video game twists or moments, I always think of this.
That was the first one.
Yes, this was like the big, huge, like, what? At the end of the original Metroid game, when you hadn't gotten any idea of who was inside the suit the entire game, but the moment when you get back to the ship and Samus takes off the helmet to reveal the player had been playing as this badass female character the entire time is huge, especially at this time. A majority of games featured main male leads. So I think Samus is one of one of the most iconic characters in video game history and helped pave the way for more iconic, strong female characters to now appear in video games as the lead.
I totally agree.
So yeah, I have to go with this one. She's awesome. She's badass. And I just think it's so great that they chose to make her a girl and then have it be revealed at the end of the game. Like, hey, this game that you've been logging all these hours into and you got frustrated and now like your life's complete because you beat it. She's a girl. Like, mic drop. Awesome.
I also think this one doesn't get as much love because everybody now knows that Samus is a girl, that they don't, it doesn't seem like as big of a surprise, but you have to put yourself in the mindset, 1986, 1987, whatever year Metroid came out.
Yes, exactly.
There were no women protagonists in like action movies or action game and video games, period. So it was very surprising to see. And if you never finished the game, you would never know.
Yep.
It was like a special thing for people who finished the game. And I thought it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Also, before we go too much further, there's going to be spoilers for every game we're talking about.
Oh, yes. This is all spoilers.
This is major spoiler territory. So if there is a game that we start talking about, flip ahead about 30 seconds to a minute.
Exactly.
All right. What's number 2?
Oh, for me again? Okay. So my number two is going to be Silent Hill 2, which I'm not sure if either of you played.
For
big no for you. And Mark, you said yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll explain it a little bit then. So the game starts out, you're playing as this guy, James. He arrives in Silent Hill and he, after receiving a really strange letter from his wife, who was presumed dead, telling him that she's waiting for him in their special place. So his purpose is to get there, to rescue her, to find her. And you go through this storyline that's just like laden with pain and guilt and obviously terror. And in the end, you find out this whole time you've been playing as this guy, James, he actually killed his wife. And the letter from the start of the game was a blank piece of paper. You realize that he was driven crazy from his guilt of killing his wife, and everything you experience in the game as him is this manifestation into reality for him. So the town of Silent Hill exists to him as his like punishment, essentially. It's crazy. It gives me goosebumps if I think about it still. It's such a twist. It's so good. If you guys haven't played Silent Hill 2, obviously I just ruined it for you, but it's still worth the playthrough just to see how it plays out.
To be fair, these games are all like 20 years old.
That's true.
So
at least these first really two from me.
Well, I think all of ours are going to be that old.
I have a more recent one.
I do too. Sort of. Well, actually, no, mine's like 15 years old too. It just makes me feel really terrible about myself. But yeah, I also read a fan theory because there's like entities in the game that are like really sexualized, and somebody made a point like oh, now these things that he's seeing is, in his visions, these overly sexual, entities or, creepy things. It kind of makes sense because this is him thinking about his wife and what he did and all this stuff from his dark past. And I'm like, whoa,
man.
Whoa, man. So yeah, I had to mention Silent Hill 2 in there because that was just a really wild twist that I think about every once in a while. I love it.
What's the most shocking one you got?
And then so I wasn't sure if I wanted to pick this one or my other one, which I'll mention briefly as an honorable mention. It won't be included in our competition. But I went with Red Dead Redemption, The Conclusion. So in this game, you're playing as John Marston. He made a deal with the U.S. government agents who were holding his family hostage. They were going to set them free if he took down his former gang. So in the end, you complete the agreement, which is really sad because, you have this moment with your former leader and he does it. The soldiers show up, and they reveal that they're actually going to kill Marston, and they were just using him the entire time. So he winds up making this really tough decision. He sends his family away and he makes this last stand against the US government, and he's killed defending his family. And knowing, it's very gut-wrenching knowing that he still got his wish in the end for his family's freedom, but it's still so tragic because had to die for it to happen.
I'm going to give
So
a
like I
hot
was
take once you're done.
yes, that's true too.
So go ahead. Keep going.
I remember I was obsessed with this game when it came out, and I put so much time into it, and then when I got to that, I was just like, no, they can't do this to us. But they did it, and it was good.
In my opinion, this is a hot take.
Mm-hmm.
It ruined the game.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it ruined the game. Like you, the point of this game
Redemption,
is redemption. You're supposed to be redeeming your
well, the
character.
word "dead's" in there too.
But you go through all of this trouble,
right?
To get on the straight and narrow and bring in your crew, and then they're like, you know what, Matt, we don't care. We're just going to kill you anyway. Like, that's,
I mean, it's realistic from that aspect, kind of. If you think about
I know,
it.
but at the same time, it's like, man, this whole thing was a waste of time.
It's sad. It's so sad. It's a terrible twist. It's a good twist, but a terrible twist, you know?
It's shocking, but I don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciated it for what it like I said, it was realistic in the sense where like, well, yeah, they're not gonna let him go because, you know, they want to eliminate them all, and
like,
you know, they were using him.
Just arrested him again. I would think I would have been better off with that.
Like, you can never leave. You're always gonna be our prisoner kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that just killed him like a dog in the street, it was like, why did we go through all this effort for this to happen?
Yeah, it's sad. I think he still redeemed himself in the end, you know? Like, I mean, the redemption was there. He
I don't know.
Lost his life saving his family.
I don't know that. I don't know.
It's still like, I know I've heard, you know, and read people talking about this, and it's still something that bothers people, clearly.
Yeah, it didn't.
It's just the
whole thing just didn't sit well with me.
Yeah, I get that. And then just really briefly, I was going back and forth between this and BioShock. And I went with Red Dead just because, you know, it was a bit more, the emotions were heavier, I feel like, in Red Dead, but BioShock, you know, you were being controlled the whole time and didn't know it. So that was
I would say that was the Red Dead is more of a shocking thing.
That's why I went with Red Dead instead of BioShock, but I had to mention BioShock just because I love that game series, and I had to mention it because that's another big one that I feel like a lot of people were into.
All right, Mark.
Yeah.
What you got?
So I will go more in terms of age than shock. So I've spoken about this one many times, just because it's something that was never really done before on a popular scale. But the twist that occurs halfway through Final Fantasy VI, when the bad guy actually wins and gets what he wants.
That's probably like one of the most shocking things I've ever heard happening in a video. The bad guy won.
That doesn't happen a lot.
He accomplished his goal.
Yep, he accomplished his goal, and then basically the second half of the game is you recovering your party and then going and killing, you know, the big bad. But yeah, it was one of those like, no, this is gonna happen. We're gonna do something, and then it happens, and the world is destroyed. World of Ruin, which is the second half of the game. That was one of the first ones, you know, because I didn't find out about that twist while playing until I played it. You know, because I played through 6 around the time, you know, before the internet was big into going, oh, you know, you've heard about this thing with 6, and you know, and Kafka's such a bastard in that movie or in that game. One of the best villains in video games. But yeah, so that is my first one. I think just the significance of that in an RPG up to that point made it a really, really popular one for me. The second one is more of a twist that occurs a little bit before the actual end of the game, so not like one of those M. Night Shyamalan twists that are like right at the end of the movie. And that is the original Walking Dead, the Telltale game. When the character you've been playing the whole time, Lee, gets bit and you realize that he is slowly turning into a zombie.
Damn.
And then, yeah, like I said, spoilers, so anyway out there.
I guess is all spoiler territory.
You have to end the game with, I don't know, because I actually did it. I don't know if you can just walk away, but he handcuffs himself to a radiator, and then he hands Clementine his gun and tells him to, like, basically put him out of his suffering. He doesn't want to turn. So you get the choice to shoot him. And you're like a 10-year-old girl.
Wow.
That this guy has basically been your father for 5 episodes of this game. He's also kind of a bad guy. I think he killed his wife or something, and I forget the very opening of the game. So it's a little redemption arc, and then you have this end. So yeah, the fact that they actually did that with the main character of the game, and actually killed him off, which was pretty good twist for me, because I did not see it coming. I thought there was going to be a way to save him, and then that was going to be how you learned how to stop the zombie outbreak. One of those things. But yeah, they just let you kill him, let him turn into a zombie, whichever way you wanted to go with it. And then my number one is the last time playing a game where I actually put my hand on my head and was like, oh shit, was the very end of Oxenfree, the original game, which is why I'm so excited for the first game, or the second game, I'm sorry, that's coming out, to see what they do to continue this. Of 2021, where there are games whose mechanics are time loops, you find out at the end of this game that the time basically resets at the end. It does a little rewind, and it's like, oh, we're off to the island, again at the beginning. And I was like, wait, what?
I remember watching you play that live.
Yeah.
I saw the live reaction.
Yeah, it's like, shit. That's why it was my game of the year that year. Because the whole game's great, and why I really wanted After Party to be better than it was. Because Night School's pretty good at those types of games, so it wasn't as good as Oxenfree. But yeah, that twist there where it basically just resets itself is kind of amazing. Yeah, I'm hoping to add a couple of these to this year's, the time loop games that are coming out this year. Maybe they'll have some good mechanics that maybe they'll add to a list next time we do this. But those are the 3 that always stick out in my mind and I constantly mention and praise. And yeah, and an honorable mention going to when you beat the first level of Super Mario Brothers and you find out that the princess is in another castle.
Okay.
What do you got, Tom?
All right. So one of mine is going to be super obvious. I guess I'll get that one out of the way first. For those of you who have not played Final Fantasy VII, please look away, listen to something else. So someone you have in your party for pretty much the whole game, because they're supposed to be the love interest of your character, is killed. What's that?
I thought you were going somewhere else in the game.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. So someone that in the main party almost the whole time ends up getting killed, and there's no way you can save them. There's nothing you can do to bring them back, and that is Aerith. And it's one of those that everybody knows about Final Fantasy VII.
I knew about this before I even played the game, long before.
It was like the first spoiler thing I had ever heard.
Yeah,
Granted,
I think so.
Granted, I had beaten the game at that point already, but it still was one of those big spoiler things. And I think it was, I remember being really upset about it, and it was a really big shock, and you did not see it coming. And it was a super big twist that the character that you thought was going to be the love interest for the whole dies half through, and there's no way to bring them back. And it ends up playing into the story why she died, but at the time you don't care. You're like, why did she have to die? Why didn't you just give her a Phoenix Down? It was just like one of those things as a kid where you just didn't understand, and it was and it sucked. But it ends up working out. But yeah, that was like the big one. So one of the more
can I what I thought you were going to say in that game? And cover your ears, Jen.
Okay.
But the whole fact that Cloud wasn't really a soldier.
That's a pretty good twist too. There's a couple of pretty good twists, but that's the one that the first one, I feel like the big one.
Yeah, no, I know that's the big moment, everybody, but
But yeah, no, yeah, that's a very big twist in that game too.
Yeah. So okay, continue.
So I'm going to spoil the most recent game, I think, out of any of them, and that's Fallout 4.
Okay.
You guys have both played Fallout 4, correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's the community building simulator where I can make
Yep.
my power armors line up like Iron Man suits, right?
Yes.
Exactly. Nothing more than
So
that.
in Fallout 4, you're on a quest to find your son because he's taken from you while you're in hypersleep or whatever they call it. I forget what they call it, cryosleep or something of that nature. And the whole quest is about finding your son, and you eventually run into this group of people called the Institute, who are kind of the bad guys of the story. It
Yeah.
depends who you side with. You can side with anybody, really, but it turns out that your son is the leader of this group of people who, in my opinion, weren't the best group of people, and I did not side with them. Most people that I know did not take their side, and they took a different side.
I mainly sided with whatever the our robot film noir detective wanted us to side with.
I think that was the railroad. Yeah.
So I was all in on our film noir detective robot.
Yeah. I was all in on the robots, man. Give the robots some love, which is why I didn't go with the instant. But yeah, so your son is basically the big bad of the game.
Yeah.
Pretty big, I would say. And last but not least, I'm surprised that nobody mentioned this one, especially Jen. It's the original Halo, and the fact that the real enemy is the Flood. Because
that's a good one.
The whole game, you're just fighting aliens. You have no idea what this Flood thing is until you get onto Halo, and all of us by zombie Marines and zombie elites and stuff, and you have no idea what this thing is, and you find out that the Flood is the real enemy of the game, and you have to destroy the Flood by destroying the universe, basically. And it was at the time I was like, what is it? Why am I not fighting aliens? I thought that was the whole point of Halo, and they reveal that the Flood are the invading force that you need to defeat. So, and that turns out to be kind of the theme of all of the games up until 4. I think the Flood is not in 4 and 5. So, I thought that was a really, really good twist as well, because you didn't really see that coming. All of a sudden, you're playing a zombie game.
Surprise.
Yeah, and then that just becomes a trope after that.
Exactly. Most of these things became tropes that we're talking about now.
I still think I'll defend the Final Fantasy VI thing, because I don't think that ever really happens again in the way it happens in that
people
game.
didn't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, Terminator, right? Terminator is about the only time that happens.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, let's pare these down and try to find the best one.
Oh, this is going to be hard.
It's going to be very difficult.
They're so different,
I got to go, well, at least Mark's, I got to go with Kefka. I got to go with Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
I think
that would be my choice on there too. As much as and the Oxenfree one is a close second. Just because that at no point did that game hint that there was a time loop or a time travel mechanic to it. The Walking Dead one was just one of the first games that I cried playing at that moment. So maybe that was just more emotion that makes me think of that one. But yeah, the Final Fantasy VI thing is, it was such not out of left field, but it was such a thing that Japanese developers would never do.
I would say it's out of left field, because in the beginning of the game, Kefka is just like this doofus that you don't take seriously, and then all of a sudden he blows up the world.
Yeah, I meant the idea that a Japanese developer would allow the villain to succeed at any point.
Gotcha.
At least back then, it was like, no, Bowser never wins, sort of thing. But yeah, that would be my choice to move on to our final.
Jen, what would you pick out of Mark's?
I think I agree with you guys on that. I was thinking about it before, which one, because you picked 3 really good ones, Mark. But I feel like that one, you're talking about destroying a world. Like, it's not just like he got away with something and then got him back. Like he got away with worldwide murder. So yeah, that's a pretty big risk that they took with that, and that's a huge plot twist. So I gotta say that's definitely the top out of the 3 that you mentioned.
And the closest parallel that I just that I just thought of while sitting here is it's kind of like the end of Infinity War. You know,
Yeah.
where
Infinity War, yeah.
Right.
you know, and you essentially do the same thing, except you're not winning by traveling back in time or anything. But you're all split up. You got to get the gang back together to win. Is essentially what the second half of Final Fantasy VI is, and kind of what Endgame is. If you're narrowing it down to its very base story. But yeah. So I'm glad that you guys both agree on that.
Yeah. All right. Let's go with Jen's. Jen, Mark, what do you think of Jen's picks?
I think the Silent Hill 2 one is my choice because that was another one of those games. That might have been one of the first twists that I played. I don't know if I beat that before or after 6. It was right around the same time because I would play those games with my sister. Doing the me play, she watch and scream at me. Sort of playthrough of the first 2 Resident Evils and the first 3 Silent Hills. And that whole manifestation was, really good storytelling, at least for that time period. You probably go back to it today and you could probably figure it out. You see something, what's it called? That would hint at that earlier.
Right.
That made it way more obvious, like the whole going back in Sixth Sense and knowing and seeing the signs that Bruce Willis was dead the whole time. Yeah, we're in spoiler territory. I'm gonna spoil everything.
I know.
Yep.
Yeah. So essentially, that's what I liked about that game, and it was such a different type of storytelling than the first game, which is why I think I enjoyed it. A little more than that first game. And then the third game is where it starts slightly going off the rails, and because they fall into the Metal Gear trap of it just needs to be crazier and crazier. As we go, but that would be my choice. I don't know, Tom.
I got to go with Red Dead. It was out of left field that it still bothers me to this day. So, and I'm so glad they went back to the beginning with Red Dead 2, and you got to see that crew become what it is.
Yeah.
So, but I was very upset because that's one of those games that you wish had a sequel. You just had so much fun in it. So they had to literally go back to the beginning because they couldn't do anything else with it. But that'd be my pick. So Jen, you're the tiebreaker.
I was hoping this wouldn't happen.
Yeah, I will say one thing about the Red Dead thing. I started to get my suspicions of where it was going once that whole working the ranch thing was taking way too long before you saw credits. But maybe that's just me going, this is way too much to be the end of the game. Like this seems like after the credits roll, you can go back and do that, not actual end of the game. So, but they're both good choices. I'll let Jen decide.
Yeah, I think it's really tough for me to choose between the 3 of them. I would probably go with Red Dead as well, honestly. Just because, like Tom said, it's just such it's like such a bittersweet twist. Like you hate it, but you love it, kind of, because it's like, oh, they got me good. And yeah, I poured so much time into that game and love, and then to have that happen was, like I said, you hate to see it, but you also respect it. Like they went there. So I'm gonna go with Red Dead as the one that moves forward.
Cool. What do you guys think of my picks? I'm interested.
Well, I'm not surprised you mentioned Aerith.
I mean, why wouldn't you be surprised?
Yeah, that would be pretty dumb. I wouldn't know you at all if I didn't expect that one.
Yeah, I mean, I would choose Aerith too because that was the first twist I've ever had in a video game.
Yeah, that's huge.
So yeah, it was the first time that I'm like, wait, you can do that? Sort of not knowing that the previous game had done something even worse. Right. In terms of a twist, but that whole game has multiple twists, as we were talking about. That's just really good. At some point, it starts to border on the Shyamalan territory, where too many
twists in that game. I will give you
that. Full spoilers, and maybe Jen will forget them at some point when she starts playing the game again. But like the whole thing where the cat person thing is actually one of the Shinra executives.
Oh, I'll never forget that.
Um, the whole the betrayal over the black materia. Um,
There's a lot.
yeah,
Which makes me excited for what they're going to do in the remake.
because they're gonna all that stuff's gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen where it happened. If that sentence makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So you guys are both saying Aerith then?
Yeah, definitely
I
Aerith.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah, the final thought on remake is I think that moment is going to happen, but I think in remake, and this is my prediction, and you can cut this out, Tom, and save it.
Okay.
I think that moment's going to happen, and instead of it actually happening, it's either going to be one of those things where Cloud is going to block it, or he's going to take the sword.
You think so?
They're going to. Well, he might not die, but
I don't know.
He'll but she'll die later in the game. But in that moment where everyone's like, oh well, this is where she's gonna die. Here we go. She's kneeling in the pool at the city. It was. Oh, here it goes. Here comes Sephiroth down, and then something is gonna happen. And then she's gonna die at some other point later. And then they got to settle the whole Zack thing. In that game that could tie into when she dies, and the Aerith we play may never die because it's a different timeline Aerith, and God, remake is going to be amazing.
All right, so we got it narrowed down to 3 then. So we got 2 Final Fantasies.
Yeah.
And Red Dead Redemption.
Poor John Marston has to go up against Final Fantasy now.
Yeah. Two
of them.
The 2 Final Fantasies that came out one after the other too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's a good twist in a few Final Fantasies, but
we have the man-made twist in 8, right? I've said this to you before, right? At least to Tom, I've said it.
Yeah.
Where basically, Squall, what is it? He dies at the end of the first disc, and the rest of it is just like
it's just his
a dream or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't really happen, and because for those of you that played 8, and as much as I shit on that game, because it's a zoo, but that whole game changes in disc 2, 3, and 4. Like it just becomes batshit in the things that happen in it, and not in a good way like 7 does. But it's just like, wait, that since we're in main spoiler territories, wait, they all went to the same orphanage together? But the mother of the orphanage is being possessed by a great old witch? What? Okay.
Yeah, it gets a little ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like, this has to be a dream. And speaking of dreams, Final Fantasy X. So going on, which one is going to win?
This is tough.
Yeah, this is hard.
I guess if I gotta pick
Aerith.
What?
I pick Aerith.
You pick Aerith? Really?
We basically have, to break it down, we have a world comes to an end, like destroying a world, right?
Yeah.
Destroying the love interest.
Yeah. You're very connected to.
Right.
Your
soulmate.
That's why I'm picking that one. Because here's the thing. The twist with the 6, which I love and defend, and is probably, my personal, favorite of it. But just the idea, where they pump up a character so much and then kill her at the end of the first disc, not like the end of the second disc, which is like leading into the final, like she dies and then that's why you go to the final battle, sort of thing, which is I think happened in other games. But the fact that the first disc ends with that moment, is something.
I should say, not only does that happen, but then you have a boss battle immediately.
Yeah. And then you snowboard afterwards.
No, but I mean, like she dies, and then the battle music starts.
Yeah.
Like you don't get a chance to like take it in. You're like sobbing while trying to beat this ridiculous boss. So yeah,
they wanted the emotions to be there. You're reeling from it while you're trying to.
And it's not telegraphed. At least with the Kefka destroying the world ending, or not ending, but that moment, that twist. They're telling you about that throughout the entire first half of that game.
Right.
Like, this is going to happen. He's going to do this. This is his plan. He's going to blow up the world. And you're like, well, no, we're going to stop him. But, sure, we'll get that. And it happens. with this comes out of basically nowhere. I mean, when you go back and play a second time, you can read into some of the stories about, why that happens.
Yeah.
But playing through it the first time, you don't see it coming.
No.
It's the definition of a twist.
Yeah.
Because
sure.
they're not going to kill off a party member, and then you lose the equipment she has. I believe you lose the materia that she has on her.
You lose the materia and the armor she's wearing. And the only thing that comes back, I think, is the accessory.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
And you don't know that going in. So if you give her really high armor or really good materia, you're shit out of luck.
It's gone. It's gone with her. It's sunk to the bottom of whatever lake that is. That's a mile deep.
Yeah, but so that's my choice. I don't know if it's one.
I'm gonna let Joe, and I will be the tiebreaker.
I was going to say I can't be the tiebreaker twice. This is tough. I think I'm gonna go with Aerith too, because I'm remembering when I heard the spoilers of Aerith dying before I played the game. So that just shows you the kind of ripple effect this had on people in the gaming world. And as you guys said, this was something that probably was one of the first times it was ever done where, they set you up where, this is the main character's love interest. They're, they love each other so much, and she's just such a sweet, innocent character. And why would she die? There's no way. And then they kill her, and then you think she's going to come back. Why can't we just do this? Why can't we save her? Blah, blah, blah. Maybe you continue on thinking oh, they're going to have a twist and bring her back kind of thing. And it was just such a big, that I heard about it, and I hadn't even played the game yet. And I know if you spoiled it for somebody that didn't somehow hear about it from somebody else, you were dead to them. They would disown you. Still to this day, we joke, spoiler alert when we talk about it, but I feel there's somebody out there who still acts like you can't talk about it because it's a sacred twist.
I'm sure, I guarantee you people do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure someone will let us know about it.
Right. For bringing it as wow. So yeah, as much as I loved and hated the Red Dead twist, I would say the Aerith one was, the main.
Well, I'm glad that I didn't. I'll let you guys pick this, and so this is going to be an obvious answer for everybody listening that knows me. It's going to be Aerith because it was the first twist that really shocked me. I never played a game where something like that happened, and it was very difficult to recover from because it was so out of left field, and you so were not ready for that. It really caught you by surprise, and it was. I think it's the definition of a twist.
Yeah.
And I feel like games have really not even touched it since then. I don't know any games where you have, or any RPGs at least, where you have a very important character like that just killed off. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Even all their Final Fantasies, I can't think of one.
And I only have an RPG sense, an honorable mention, but it's just a thing that's been happening in the series so often that it's not really a shock. Is the twist in Persona 5, where you find out one of the characters. Oh, what's spoiler time? I'll say it. The person's the boy detective turns out to be basically part of the big evil. But you don't know that. And then they figure it out and show you the twist. But Persona's done that for each game. There's a twist. Somebody's, not who they seem to be. But even though that twist was pretty good, and the way they reveal how the characters figured it out before you did was pretty good. And the fact that the character that turns on you heard Morgana talking, the cat as in cat form. And you could only hear that if you've been, into the other world. So, that twist was pretty good. That's sort of an honorable mention. But unlike the ones we mentioned here, and especially the one that won, it's something that series has done throughout almost all the games. So no matter how good the twist is, it wasn't going to register. And I think that's I think that's why it being the first, and that's why it impacted me and Tom so much in that sense. And you know, and I guess led a bunch of Japanese developers. Maybe that's the reason all the Persona and Shigemi Tensei games have twists in them because of Aaron.
It's very possible. I mean, it was a very, what's the word I'm looking for? It was a very monumental game. So stuff that happened after that, it all became tropes because of Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VI. So it's very interesting to see what happens
And
these days after all of this stuff has happened already.
yeah, and each of the Final Fantasies going forward try to have some kind of twist to it. I can run through them. 8 has that, twist where they're all in the orphanage as kids, and for some reason forget that. 9 has the thing where you find out that, Zidane, there's something with Zidane. I'm not going to spoil it for you, Tom. But, and 10, has its twist.
10, everybody knows the twist.
Is that he's not real. He's a dream or whatever. And then apparently they retcon that in 2 and X2. Somehow I forget. I only played that game once. And then 12 is a little more basic. That's just the thing where it's an old fashioned political twist. Like somebody turns on somebody in like a royal family sort of thing. So not anything out of the ordinary. 13, you find out that there's a whole nother world below Cocoon. That isn't as bad as people in Cocoon say it is. And then 15, has the twist at the very end.
You could say that 15 does the same thing.
Yeah.
They do a very similar thing with the love interest. So
yeah,
it's which is kind of why I guess I liked 15 more than most people.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of on the same wavelength as 7 in that sense.
Yeah.
But
they kind of make up for it differently in 15. 15 actually does 6 and 7. I mean, the end of 15 is a world of ruin. After the bad guy wins, essentially. But not in the same sense that Kefka won. But yeah, so like it seems like 6 they tested the waters and it was like, and then 7 it like took the world by storm, that twist. So they were like, hey, we got to do this for every game. Hey, let's go ahead and do this. That's one of the reasons why I have to put it up there as as number 1, even though I left that to you because I knew you were going to nominate something from 7. But it would have been my number 1 choice. So
all I could say is I'm glad that you guys picked it before I did, because now it's not my fault.
Yeah.
You cannot blame me for having this on this list and for it winning. So if you guys have any other interesting twists that you think that we missed or we should have talked about, let us know on Twitter, and we'd happy to be able to continue the conversation. I know I will enjoy it. I'm sure these two will enjoy it as well. So on that note, it is time to move to our Retro Roulette game, which was Crazy 2 for the Sega Dreamcast. Now, Crazy Taxi was a arcade game designed by Sega that was very popular in the late 90s, and it was brought home, and then they decided, let's make a sequel. So this is the sequel to that game. Some have seen me put on stream, which I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm interested to hear the two of you guys' thoughts on the game, because you're probably coming from very different places, because Mark, I'm pretty sure, has played the game in the arcade, as have I.
Yeah, the first one.
And Jen, I don't know if you've played Crazy Taxi at all.
Played it very briefly in arcades, never on console.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I would like to hear Jen's opinion, since she's the one that probably most recently played this game.
I am so glad that we played GTA 2 before this game, because this just made this game so much more refreshing to play after the shit driving in that game. So I really liked Crazy Taxi 2. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's simple. You have your 4 different taxi drivers that you can choose from, and I did the regular rules where you just pick up as many passengers as you can, and in the end you get your license score, whatever they call it. I just really appreciate the simplicity of the game. Like I said, it's not convoluted or anything. It's very basic. The thing that kind of confused me when I first started playing, I didn't realize what the controls were going to be, and I didn't notice that the drive and reverse buttons, I was hitting that by accident, so I kept like not going anywhere, and the game was yelling at me to get going, and I'm like, how the heck do you drive? Once I figured out the controls, which took me like 10 seconds, then it was smooth sailing. I think the best that I did might have been like $1,300 and like 5 passengers, and I think I got a D. So I'm not amazing at it, but it was enough fun for me to want to keep playing it. Like when we were waiting to jump on to do this podcast, I was playing it up until we were ready to go. So I went back to it. I think it's a lot of fun. I appreciate how you're not really taking damage when you crash into everything, because it's pretty hard to drive in that game, but it's in a fun way. Yeah. I appreciate that it doesn't like hinder you ridiculously, where you're like, okay, you just ruined the car, game over kind of thing. Like you bounce around and you knock things over and you drag phone booths into the street and you flip cars over by accident and people are screaming at you in the back seat. It's a silly, goofy, lighthearted game. It definitely has that arcade feel playing it, on a console like I did. You could tell it was an arcade game at one point for sure. But yeah, I had a lot of fun playing it. I don't have any complaints. I love the music. Of course, we couldn't play the stream. I could appreciate it playing it at home, listening to the music as I drove. And yeah, I don't have too much more to say. It's a nice little game.
Yeah. I mean, something you don't really get nowadays is the bringing the arcade home.
Yeah.
That was a big deal in the 90s.
Yeah, it's more the opposite now.
Yeah. Now you go to the arcade to get that arcade experience. You don't bring it home. There is no because it's so powerful now that it doesn't. There's no.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was meaning more that they now have Guitar Hero.
Well, yeah, there's that too. But yeah, Mark, what are your thoughts on Crazy Taxi 2 coming from the arcade experience?
So, for Crazy Taxi 2, the main difference was that I don't know, it didn't feel like a necessary sequel. Like there wasn't much in terms of putting it in a new location that really spiced it up anywhere. It just felt like the same game. Being in New York rather than San Francisco.
There was one big addition that I figured out on stream.
You can jump.
Which was you can jump now. You can make the car leap into the air.
I didn't use that much.
That's what I was saying. Outside of, if you I guess if you learn how to use that effectively, you can drive and get more fares. Yeah. Maybe there's shortcuts you can jump to and all that. But it just felt like the same game, and vastly inferior to the arcade version of this game. It was just driving around like Jen. I don't think I got over 2,500. I think might have been my most, or something in the 2000s. And that's just because I kept doing the same level over, and I started to learn the map a bit. So I was able to get places faster. To know not to make like a wrong turn, like Tom in the streams. Yeah.
Yes.
I ended up there.
Like if you don't know the map, you might make it to, that arrow's pointing that way, and you turn it to like a dead end alley or something like that. Yeah. So once I started learning the map is when I started getting better. So I'm gonna see it like it was my only game. I would get really good at it. But yeah, I just think there was just something about the arcade version of it that was just so different, and pure is probably the wrong word, but just was a lot better. And I will go to bat for the Dreamcast version over any other version that's ever been out there. Of the home console version. And also it's one of the main reasons, it's one of the first games that the soundtrack is something I remember and can be set into a place in time if I hear songs from the soundtrack. Like you give me any of those Offspring songs and I don't even have to know the name of it. It just gets to the chorus or whatever where he goes like, yeah. In the first game, and I instantly pick it up. But yeah, basically playing through this game, it just felt like the same. The challenge modes weren't, I did them once and then was like, maybe if maybe if I was dedicated to this game, and had nothing else to play, I might go through and try and get better at these. But yeah, it's essentially, it felt like they were like, hey, I'm curious, and Tom, I don't know if you had any information on this, but I didn't get the chance to look it up because I just thought of it. I wonder if they made a sequel for arcades, or if this was just the console companies going, hey, we need to make a sequel because the other one made a boatload of money. Back then, or if it was just, I don't know where 2 came from. I honestly didn't remember there was a 2 until it won the thing for the Retro Roulette. I had completely forgotten they made a sequel.
I don't think they made a sequel in the arcade. I think Crazy Taxi 1 was the only one in the arcade, and then I think 2, 3, and then there were a couple other things.
Yeah. I completely forgot there were sequels to it. So that just showed you how good they were. But yeah, Crazy Taxi is Crazy Taxi. It's the same type of game. I like the idea of multiple stops thing. That was a good addition. I'll give it that. Even though that was a pain in the balls because it basically just sent you back and forth on the map. That's how they, made it difficult to do multiple drop-offs.
But all right. So I'm going to get into it here. So just the fact that there is the map itself, playing this right after you're playing GTA 2, just the fact that you can get around the city better than that game blows my mind.
Yeah.
Should not have difficult to get around that game. It just kills me that it was so difficult. But yeah, there's just everything about this game is nostalgic because you always knew about the Offspring being in the game, and it made the atmosphere what it needed to be. Like the game wouldn't be half as good without the Offspring. That's one of my opinions.
Exactly.
Like if you go and any of the ports, like the PC port or the 360 port of the original game that has just like bog standard, just like punk music, it's not the same as having the Offspring. It's just the attitude. The attitude of the game is great, and I love it. And it's one of those games where you don't need to sit down and have to play it forever. If you have like 20 minutes, you're like, I'll throw on Crazy Taxi. You can have fun in that 20 minutes and be done. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something that we don't really have anymore. I feel like games like that are now mobile games, and it kind of sucks because like you go and play a game on your Xbox or your PlayStation. Generally, it's a long game that you're just picking up part of the story and then putting it back down. You don't really see arcade style games like this anymore, and it's kind of sad. I'm kind of long for the days of those games because it allows you to kind of turn your brain off and have some fun with it and not have to worry about, am I going to progress far enough in the story? Do I have to worry about the X and Y and Z? No, you're just picking up people and dropping them off. Like this is like Mark's ideal game, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, my only real complaint about it was that there wasn't enough difference, outside of the jump button and the multiple drop that made me go, why would I play this game and not just the Dreamcast version, of the first game? Yeah. If I just want to get that arcade taxi, game out of my system, Yep. That was my one real complaint with this game.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I mean, I personally feel like this game handles better. The first game's really twitchy. Like this game's twitchy, but that way harder to control in mine. But yeah, I mean, there's not much else you could say about this game, so we might as well give it a score and move on to the next one. So, Jen, what score do you give Crazy Taxi 2?
I'm going to give this game you're going to hate me. I'm going to give it a 3.8 out of 5. I feel like it's just a little bit too simple for me to give it a solid 4 out of 5, but I want to, but I'm not going to. But yeah, I'm going to give it a 3.8. I liked it. I agree. I think it's something that you can jump to for 20 minutes and play it. It doesn't take brain power really, so you can kind of just relax and take a mental break. You don't have to commit to a storyline. You don't have to commit emotionally to this game. It's funny, it's humorous, it has great music. It's just a nice chill game. There's no strings attached to it. So, yeah.
All right, Mark, how about you?
Yeah, so 3 out of 5 for me. The mechanics of the game are fine. It's playable. Music's great. It's just not much more than fine to me.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and maybe it's because I have much more experience with the first game. That I'm for the most part, after playing it for an hour or two, I can get back to memorizing that map. And maybe if I play too long and I got to that same, like riding a bike mentality with the map, maybe I would score it better. But yeah, there's not enough here to make me rate it any higher or even close to what I would give the first game. So a nice solid 3 out of 5. Play it if you like these type of games. You're not going to be disappointed, but I would recommend, unless if you find it really cheap at like a too many games or something like that, I would just call Uncle Vim if you really need to play it.
Yeah. I am going to give this game a 4 out of 5, just because it was some of the most fun I had on stream in quite a long time. And I feel like this is a game that you could play at a party and just pass the controller around and enjoy it, and everybody has fun with it. And it's just goofy and fun, and it lightens the mood. That's for sure. It was kind of a game I needed, and I appreciate the game for what it is. It's not the most intricate game of all time, but it does the job. All right. On that note, it is time to spin the wheel. All right. We got a Genesis game. We're playing World of Illusion, starring Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck.
Mickey Mouse himself.
All right, so the inferior game. Got it.
Not the good one. This is the sequel. Actually, this one is supposed to be pretty good too, from what I've heard.
I'm not saying it's bad. It's just Castle of Illusions.
Castle of Illusion's unbeatable in my heart.
Yeah.
But
The fact that my at the time 6-year-old niece picked it up and started playing it and got through the first 2 levels shows me that Castle of Illusion is a timeless game. So I'm wondering how World of Illusion holds up.
Me too, because I think I may have just loaded it up to try it. I don't think I've ever actually sat down to play it, so I'm pretty excited. Jen, do you have any background with either? Like, did we play Castle of Illusion? I don't even remember if we played Castle of Illusion on this channel yet.
I don't I don't. I really don't have any background in these games, so I'm looking forward to it.
Genesis is way out of your comfort zone, so
yeah.
I like that. I like getting you to play that you've never heard of or played before.
Me too. I was explaining Retro Roulette to some people recently, and I was saying how much I appreciate it. Gives you such an opportunity to play things that I know I never would have played on my own, so it's fun.
All right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up this week. Before we get out of here, Mark, do you want to let everyone know about our family of podcasts?
Yeah, so we got Stranger Damies, our D&D podcast. Airs every other Wednesday. You can find it anywhere you get podcasts. We're on Instagram and Twitter at Stranger Damies. Then we have our movie podcast, They Called Us a Movie. Airs every Thursday. You can find it on Spreaker and anywhere else you get podcasts. We're on Instagram and Twitter at The Main Damie. TheMainDamie.com is where we host all of our podcasts. And coming up soon in October, Ant will be writing his 31 Days of Horror, where he watches a different horror movie every day for the month of October. So it's one of our big features of the year, so look forward to that. And so, Jen, what's our streaming schedule?
So we stream consistently as of right now about 3 days a week. So Mondays, it's going to alternate. It's either going to be Retro Roulette, where Tom plays our newest Retro Roulette game and gives his initial thoughts on it, and Mark is going to join him for that. Or it's going to be Retro Mondays with Tom as well, where he's usually playing through a Japanese RPG. So he just beat Suikoden. Congratulations on that. And he just started playing Chrono Trigger. So that so far has been awesome. And I'm really looking forward to getting deeper into that game. So please join us for that. It's very exciting. Tuesdays is always a day off for us. Wednesdays is our co-op day where the 3 of us jump on together. Right now we are doing Halo Hump Day, where we're playing through the Master Chief Collection together, having a lot of fun. I would like to say we're owning noobs, but I mean, I'm not doing any of that, unfortunately. I can only speak for myself. But it's been a nostalgia bomb for us. We're having a lot of fun with that. And we are always looking for a fourth. Just want to put that out there. We can always use the extra help. I know we have 2 people that said they would join us. So good to know. Thursdays is right now a co-op day for Mark and myself. We're playing through It Takes Two, and that's been a ton of fun. So definitely, if you haven't checked it out, it's very entertaining to watch, even as a spectator in general. It's just it's out there in a good way. And then Fridays are either going to be our day off, or once we hit fall at some point, we are thinking about bringing back some Friday streams, and same thing for Saturdays and Sundays. Right now they're TBD. If we decide to do something random, we'll let you know. But if not, they are currently days off for us, just because we have a lot of other things going on with summertime and, making plans now that we actually see each other in person.
Yep. A lot of stuff going on. And
Yeah. And obviously, if you're listening to this when it drops on Monday, we will not be streaming on Wednesday. In solidarity with the Do Better Twitch or whatever the hashtag is. I keep getting it
Twitch
wrong.
Do Better, but yes.
There we go. Yeah. So we will return. I believe that would be Wednesday, September 8th, with our multiplayer Wednesday stream.
Yes.
So just in case, after that whole spiel by Jen, you went and looked for us on Wednesday and saw that we were not there, which I hope you are not searching Twitch on Wednesday at all. But that is why you won't find us on Wednesday.
But on a happy note, this past weekend, if you're listening to this when it comes out, we are playing D&D for the first time in person at the start of this pandemic. So that's something to look forward to. As we continue recording, you will hear those sessions. So be on the lookout for that. I think they're going to be a bit more engaging now that we're all in person.
Shit, I have to write the story.
Whoops.
Keep an eye out for that. Before we get out of here, I want to mention that we're an affiliate of Stone Age Gamer. If you need any video game stuff for your retro consoles, whether it be cables or power supplies or controllers or anything you may need for your retro gaming setup, head on over there via the link in the description. And every time you use that link to purchase something, it gives us a little kickback and helps us make this podcast and our streams better for you guys. So I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us. I hope everyone is staying well, being safe. And for Mark and Jenny, I'm Tom, and we will catch you guys in the next one.